Today we have a very interesting opportunity to ride a unique motorcycle, not like anything Alex or I have ever been on before. This is the new Kawasaki Ninja 7 Hybrid. Very different powertrain on this motorcycle, and we're going to talk about everything that you want to know with this bike as well as ride it today.
Yeah, this is an interesting concept. Hybrid vehicles have been around for a while, but it's just slowly starting to trickle into the motorcycle world. And this is one of the first major offerings, at least, from a brand that's been around for a while and supposed to know what they're doing. So we're excited to check this out in person and finally throw a leg over this.
Yeah, it's a super different kind of bike. Again, something that's going to be a very new experience for Alex and I. And we're on this bike today thanks to our friends over at Sun Powersports here in Thornton, Colorado. They have this as well as a big inventory of cool bikes. I was even here last week riding a Honda Dax, which is also really cool. So if you're in the area, check them out because they've got quite the selection of vehicles inside. And they're doing us a favor by letting us get on this bike because this is not a demo unit. This is one that they're actually going to sell, but we'll be able to get it out and see a little bit of how it rides, because the way that this bike is going to ride is very different. And that's mostly because of how different the powertrain is.
So at the core of it, you're looking at a 451cc parallel twin that's pretty similar to some of the other parallel twins Kawi has in their lineup.
Yeah, it's like what they have in the Eliminator. So it's a familiar parallel twin that's on this motorcycle, but that's really where the familiarity stops, because this parallel twin is also paired up with an electric motor. So those things can work either simultaneously, both the engine and the electric motor at the same time. They can work independently. So you can stick this bike in an EV mode where you're riding all electric. And that's the reason that this is a Ninja 7. It's not a Ninja 4 or 5, even though it's 451 cc's, because they're combining the power of that combustion engine with the electrified side of things.
Yeah, exactly. So Kawasaki says that this bike performance-wise should be pretty on par with like a 650 or a 700cc parallel twin. That's where the name comes from, and we'll figure out if that's true or not when we get this out on the road. But talking about some of the electric components for a second, why don't we pop the seat? We can show the battery underneath and talk about some of the numbers.
Do you have the key?
I do have the key. What did I do with it? There you go.
Yeah, there's not a ton that you can see just by popping the seat. So up here, nothing too much. We've got a little bit of storage there for documentation, you know, your registration, that kind of thing. But if we pop the seat here, you can see back there the starter battery, and then underneath the seat, and I think even underneath the fuel tank, is where the relatively small battery for the electrified side of things lives on this bike. And they wanted to make the battery a little bit smaller, Kawasaki, in order to keep the weight down on this motorcycle. Even so, it does weigh around 500 pounds, so it's on the heavy side of middleweight bikes.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a crazy high voltage system like you find in an all-electric motorcycle like a Livewire or a Zero. It's a lower voltage system. It's about a 1.3 kilowatt hour battery pack, 9 kilowatt output on the motor, and it's a 48 volt lithium ion battery pack. So,
and combined, we're looking at about 59 horsepower typically from the system. However, there is a function that you can tap into here on the handlebar to give you a temporary power boost from the electrified side of the powertrain. That should bump you up about 10 horsepower to 69 horsepower combined for the total output. And we'll see how that feels out on the road when Alex throws a leg.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm curious to see how it feels. We've spent time now on all the 451cc bikes from Kawi that are out right now, which is the Eliminator, the Z500, the Ninja 500, and I'm excited to ride this because it makes more power than any of those. So, yeah. What do you think of the design, Case?
You know, it definitely looks as high-tech as I think the bike is. Again, you're probably more so the authority when it comes to sport bike styling. What do you think of it?
I think it's a good looking bike. This obviously is supposed to look like the Ninja 500. It's very close in style in terms of bodywork and everything, and front end design. You've got a couple, different accents and pieces to cover up some of the electrical components, but I think it's a sharp looking bike, and I gotta say, I love the color scheme they went with on this. Green is Kawasaki's color, but it also kind of signifies the hybrid and the electricity side of things, so I think them using a lot of green accents on this bike is a good move. I think it's a sharp looking bike, and it's also small. Like, yeah, you're getting on it right now. It's pretty much exactly the same size as a Ninja 500, which is a really approachable, friendly starter bike for most people.
Yeah,
so,
the seat height, not super high, which is nice. It does make it a relatively easy motorcycle to get your leg over.
31.3 inches is the seat height.
I'm about 5'10", so I'm not the tallest, but not only am I flat-footed, I've got a good bit of bend in the knee, so it's not a difficult bike to fit on, and maybe it's something that they've done with the weight distribution, but at least sitting here, pushing the bike back and forth, it doesn't feel to me like 500 pounds. Then again, I am our resident bagger and cruiser guy, so maybe Alex will feel differently about it.
900 pounds feels light to case.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see when I get on that. But yeah, pretty good looking bike. Let's look at some of the switchgear and the dashboard a little, because there's some big changes there compared to what you'd find on your standard bike. So first of all, we've got our TFT display here, which gives you all kinds of information about what the bike is doing. So over here on the right-hand side, you can see the fuel gauge. We're a little low on fuel right now, but should be enough to get a little bit of a ride in. And then you can see the battery gauge over on the other side. And then a couple funny or funky things that you wouldn't see on most bikes. You've got paddle shifters, so no clutch on the handlebar, but you can manually cycle through the gears with the buttons right there. And then we've got a couple different switches here for changing between the automated and manual transmission, the assisted walk mode, changing between hybrid and electric modes, and then everything to go through your different selectable ride modes there. But otherwise, pretty intuitive, basic controls.
Yeah, and then like we pointed out earlier, you've got that boost function on the right side of the handlebar, as well as your starter and kill switch. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think the biggest differences are going to be how it actually rides, because we've ridden other motorcycles in the past that have automated transmissions. We've ridden most of the Honda lineup with their DCT transmissions. We haven't had a chance yet to try out Honda's e-clutch system, but this bike, what I think is going to make it seem the most different from a riding perspective is going to be that handoff between the electric side of the powertrain and the combustion engine, because on the automotive side of things, they have made those handoffs very smooth. Companies like Toyota have been working on that for a very long time, so it's very refined. It'll be really interesting to see how refined is the handoff between that electric motor and the combustion engine on this.
Well, let's go get it out on the road, and I'm gonna find out. All right, let's hop on this Ninja 7 Hybrid. And first impressions, feels manageable, but you can definitely feel the weight over something like a Ninja 500. Screen is starting up, and kill switch starts up like a normal bike. You can hear that engine running right now. And the first thing, before we even get on the road, I want to show you this walk mode. So if I hold this walk button here, you can see walk mode comes up on the screen. And this is for maneuvering in parking lots and yeah, just getting around areas. So shift it into gear with that little finger toggle, and now in walk mode, that's full throttle, 1 mile an hour. And you can also twist the throttle in reverse and it'll back up for you, which is especially helpful getting yourself out of you know, sloped parking lot or something. So that's a pretty handy feature, something that wouldn't be possible without the electric motor. Take it out of walk mode and it starts back up. I'm going to start in eco mode. You do have to hold the mode button down for a little bit of a period of time. But eco mode is basically going to give us the most fuel efficient setup. Feels pretty smooth so far, gotta say. It's always weird getting on a bike without a clutch. Let's pull onto the road here, give it a little bit of juice. So left thumb is shift down, right thumb is shift up. And I was expecting it to shift for me a lot quicker than it did, which is actually kind of cool. I like having more control over the bike. That is so smooth off the line though. A little bit of a power cut and a head bob when you do shift, but it's pretty smooth. Yeah. Not bad at all. A lot of buttons up here though. It's going to take a second for me to figure out where everything is. Really smooth downshifting. That's impressive. Wow. Alright, let's go into sport mode. Again, you got to hold it a little bit. Get across this intersection. You can definitely feel the weight, especially around turns. Doesn't steer quite as easily as the full gas counterparts. But so far I'm pretty impressed. So we're stopping in second gear. I felt it shift back into first gear. Taking off. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Even downshifting, coming up to a light, it's all so smooth. I'm gonna try the e-boost next time we take off. So I'm already in sport mode. We'll give that boost mode a go, and then we'll try the full EV mode on our way back. All right, e-boost. Yep, you can feel that extra little bit of power. It does feel like it scoots a little quicker than like a Ninja 500. And I'm being a little careful with it too, because it is brand new and still breaking in a little bit. Finding those buttons is a little challenging. Let's hold down this EV button. We're now in full EV mode. And I felt it shift into second, into third. Whoa, that's weird. Fourth, oh wow. That's a weird sensation, being dead silent, but you can still hear and feel the gear clunk. It's pretty smooth. I wouldn't say it's as seamless as when the gas motor is running, but it works well. I can downshift now into second. Downshifts are even smoother. You can barely feel the downshifts in the full electric mode. That's the weirdest sensation. Doesn't go more than 40 miles an hour in full EV mode. So you're not going to be on the highway in the EV mode. But for cruising around the city, trying to save some fuel, trying to be quiet, this is awesome. And I like that you can still shift through the gears, although I wouldn't say it's as fun as when the motor's running. Something missing a little bit, but I was not expecting the gear shifts when the gas motor's not running to be that smooth. Go back into gas powered mode. And yeah, it's really smooth once the gas motor's running. Pretty impressive tech. I, like Case was saying, would prefer to have a clutch lever on my bike, but this is a great option for new riders who don't want to deal with the clutch, or just tech enthusiasts who want to try something new. Super cool. And the clutch is real smooth off the line. Wow. Pretty sweet bike. Otherwise, feels like a Ninja 500. Riding position is pretty much identical. A lot of this feels very similar to the Ninja 500, except for powertrain. So we already know the Ninja 500 is a fun bike to scoot around twisty canyon roads. This is no different. And once again, big thanks to Sun Enterprises here in Thornton, Colorado, for giving us the opportunity to ride this really cool machine. And as you can see, they've got Kawasaki, KTM, Gas, Can-Am, Polaris, side-by-sides, motorcycles. They've got a cruiser, Harley side of things over in that building, so anything you could want, you'll be able to find over here. Check them out. So Case, we can't do a motorcycle review without talking about some of the standard motorcycle things, some of the specs around this bike. So, I mean, we already went over the weight, 500 pounds, but what are we looking at for like forks and brakes and all that kind of stuff?
So up front, we have a 41 millimeter fork. It is just a standard upright fork. It's not inverted. We have dual disc brakes up in the front. They're 300 millimeter with 2 piston calipers. Suspension all the way around is going to be about 4.7 inches of travel. And then up front, we've got a 120 width tire. In the rear, we have a 160 width tire and a single 220 millimeter rear disc. ABS is standard on this bike. So we've got some pretty decent features. I think it all falls in line for a middleweight bike. It's not the most advanced, highest end components of anything out there, but plenty enough for something a little bit more on the entry level. Yeah,
I agree with that. The tricky thing is, you said it's got good components for kind of a mid-range, middleweight bike, but the price isn't in that middleweight, middle range category. So what's the price on this bike?
That's true. There is a lot of technology going on here, a lot of stuff that Kawasaki is trying out. And as far as R&D and manufacturing even, that comes at a price. In this case, it's $12,500 MSRP.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it is going to be a lot. Theoretically, they're saying in eco mode, you might be able to get 76, 77 miles per gallon. Yep. So maybe over time you'll save out on fuel. And I think there is a market of people out there for whom having a bike with no manual clutch is a draw. So I'm not going to say that this bike doesn't have an audience, but $12,500 is expensive.
It's a lot of money, yeah, and some of that fuel cost thing, like a Ninja 500 is already pretty fuel efficient. So if you're looking to get around town and spend the least amount possible on fuel, there's other options out there. There might be better options out there. I think the big thing with this is if you're like a tech nerd like me and you want to be an early adopter of this new technology, there's always going to be an increased cost that comes with that. Like if you bought a Tesla 10 years ago, you were really early into the game and you had the new cool tech, but that came at a cost. And this is kind of that same story here, where this is a technology that as time goes on, we'll probably see more and more machines coming out with tech like this, but it's going to take a number of years for that cost to start to come down and for that decision to become more practical and less about just wanting to be an early adopter.
And I also want to say a quick thanks to Scott over at Rider Justice. The team over there, they've been supporting this channel for a really long time. And if you ever need legal representation, either on 2 wheels, like this Kawasaki, or on 4, make sure you call Scott first, because the Rider Justice folks are great to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't say better things about them. So there you have it, the new Ninja 7. There are other options out there too within Kawasaki's lineup. They're kind of the first to the game with this. They're doing a naked version of this that doesn't have all the fairings on it. They've got some all-electric models coming out. So yeah, Kawasaki's going all in on the hybridization and electrification of motorcycles. I'm sure we'll see the other brands start to follow that same path soon, but let us know in the comments. Would you go out and buy a hybrid motorcycle in 2024, 2025? Let us know. Thanks for watching. Check out alltfl.com. We'll see you next time.